All right. Let's finish up the audio novella being read to us by Mr. Chris Metzen. Last time on Heartlands. The Stromguard forces started their attack on the farm at night. Thrall and Jaina are trying to do what they can to stop the conflict from causing more bloodshed than it needs to. Gayara misperceives Jaina being there to fight them as opposed to stopping the conflict. How will this end? Will Marin's madness be put in check and stopped? Will Danath show up to make her see reason? Let's find out.
Blizzard Entertainment presents Heartlands by Adam Christopher, part of World of Warcraft, The War Within. Narrated by Chris Metzen. Chapter 5, The Battle of Goshek Farm. Gayara blinked the spots from her vision and pushed herself to her feet, shaking her head as she regained her senses. Tumbling down a steep hillside, she'd been fortunate enough to hit something soft, a haystack, at the bottom. She looked around to get her bearings. She was in a farmstead, a human one. It seemed she'd been swept some distance from Goshek to Stromek Holdings. The place was deserted, but Gayara took no chances. She skirted the rocky hillside and headed back toward the sound of fighting, aiming for a large barn that would provide good cover. "Stop!" She skidded to a halt as a tiny form leapt out of the structure, right in her path. It was a human, a child, she realized, no more than a dozen years of age, holding a sword that was longer than he was tall, and clearly far more than he could handle. Gayara hissed in disgust. Was Marin so desperate she would conscript children to fight for her? "You will not take our crops," the boy yelled, lifting the unwieldy weapon as best he could. "Mother and father worked hard all season, and the castle collected most of the harvest as tax. We'll starve. I won't let you take them." Gayara took a breath. This child was no soldier. He was protecting the farm, his home. "Little one, I will not hurt you," she said gently. "And I am not here to steal. None of the Maghar are." She walked slowly toward him. The boy stumbled and fell backwards. Abandoning his weapon, he crabbed toward the barn, only to be quickly yanked backward by a pair of hands. "You stay away from us!" Gayara stopped and peered into the barn. There, huddled in the darkness, were people. Many people. Older men and women, children and even babes in arms. Gayara took a step forward, and almost as one, the human shrieked in fear and shrank back before her. There was not a soldier among them. These were regular people, people who had settled the highlands to find peace and good work, following a dream or a promise or perhaps just a chance, trying to make lives for themselves and their families. And now war had come, a fight they hadn't asked for and didn't want. All they wanted to do was live. At the front stood two men. One was older than the other. Both were lean from a lifetime of hard labor. They held makeshift weapons, a hoe for the older man, a bent pitchfork for the younger, that made Gayara cringe in pity. The older man lifted his chin in defiance, although when he spoke, the trembling fear in his voice was plain. "Murren's told us all about you orcs," he said. "Bloodthirsty and cruel you are." "And starving," said the younger man. "Desperate for what we have, right? You'd put us all to the sword and take what is ours for yourself." Gayara felt the energy leave her. She knew just how big she was compared to them, how terrifying she must look, fitted for war. They were afraid of her, desperately so, and Gayara knew it was the same for her people. Right now in Goshek Farm, she knew the same scene could unfold so easily. Orc families and farmers confronting a terrible, faceless enemy, one determined to kill and take and conquer. She took a step back, but her movement made the whole group flinch. "We came here seeking peace," she said, "to escape war in our world. We did not come here to fight." But it was no use. The humans weren't even listening. All they saw was an enemy. Big, strong, frightening, different. The 7th Legion were mighty, but even before the battle, Gayara knew the Stromik were fewer in number. The Korkron, backed by the Magar forces, outnumbered them 3-1, if not more. Marin Trollbane's relentless hatred had led her to attack despite the odds. It was going to be a massacre. After the Legionnaires were finished, the farmers, these people, would be next to fight. The humans would be wiped out, and that very thought sickened Gayara. The children in this barn would learn hatred, something they would pass to another generation. Here was battle without honor, feeding an unending cycle of animosity. All their victory would do was cement this feeling as fact. But maybe it was a cycle she could still break. Marin may hate her. Gayara knew she did. But Gayara couldn't let Marin's hatred change who she was, or who the Magar were. She remembered Thrall's words. "Find where Stromgarde is hurting. Seek another way." Well, here it was. Stromgarde and Hammerfall had more in common than not. "Gayara!" The humans screamed as Thrall rode in on Wolfback. Gayara held up a hand, motioning him to stay where he was. "We can stop this," Gayara said to Thrall. "We must stop this." Thrall looked at the humans and nodded. "There are many battles to fight, but this is not one of them. You can save these people, and yours. That power is in your hands." Gayara nodded. "I understand." She swung herself onto Thrall's mount behind him. But how? Thrall flicked the reins. "I think I know, but we must find Agra. She and Jaina are doing what they can to stop the fighting." With a yell, Thrall encouraged his mount, and they headed up the hillside. This is hopeless, thought Jaina, as she raced across the battlefield. While she was doing her best to keep fighters away from each other with arcane magic, she knew she couldn't be everywhere at once, and she had seen enough fighting to know which side was going to win.
I mean, technically, Jaina, if you wanted, you perhaps could make a bunch of mirror images and perhaps get them to kind of replicate what you're doing. I mean, we did see Caligos do this in Dragonflight when we were doing the Azure Span questing. He literally had mirror images of himself everywhere. So I'm just saying, Jaina, maybe you could take a note from Caligos and be like, maybe I could put mirror images throughout the battlefield to do. But nah, why would she remember that?
Marin had gambled, and she had lost. Now Jaina had to find her before it was too late. Summoning an arcane familiar beneath her boots, Jaina allowed herself to be lifted high into the air in an attempt to spot Marin, and she quickly saw that she was very close. Marin was just ahead, urging her troops forward, clad in the wolf pelt she thought symbolic of her right to rule. Jaina dismissed her servant, which dissolved beneath her. Using that momentum, she sprinted forward and landed next to Marin. Jaina summoned a portal, and tackling Marin around the waist, dived through it. The pair fell out onto a clear patch of ground, some distance away, the portal snapping shut behind them. Marin got to her feet, but Jaina was faster, aiming her staff squarely at the Regent. "Is this how the Alliance treats its own, Lord Admiral? Compliance by force?" Jaina approached, ready to subdue the Regent if necessary. "Open your eyes, Marin. For all your talk of the Alliance chasing meaningless battles, you've started the most meaningless one of all." Arcane energy crackled down her staff. you've lost. I won't let you inflict more damage upon your kingdom or the Alliance." Above them, the sky flared red, blinding in the failing night. Jaina gasped in surprise and stepped back, turning her focus from Merrin as she shielded her eyes. The two women looked to the north. There, from a nearby hilltop, a column of roiling flame shot into the night sky, bright enough to light the entire landscape where Korkron and 7th Legion stood, frozen in battle. All eyes on the figure Jaina could now see illuminated by the rising sun. Gayara. Atop her mount, the Magyar leader raised a war horn to her lips. As she blew, the sound reverberating across the battlefield. Jaina could now see two other figures with her, Agra and Thrall. The sound of the war horn faded, and Gayara spoke, her powerful voice echoing against every hill, in every hollow, the undulating landscape of the Arathi Highlands acting as the perfect, natural amplifier. "There will be no battle here. There is no honor in this slaughter. The Korkron and Magyar will hold. I call upon the 7th Legion and the Stromic army to do the same." Jaina turned to survey the battlefield from her new vantage point. The light of the rising sun stretched its tendrils almost from Hammerfall behind them to Stromgard on the far horizon. It also illuminated the terrible cost of the fight. She could see bodies strewn across the highlands, many fallen on both sides, Stromic, Magyar, 7th Legion, and Korkron. "Stromgard, hear me," Gayara continued. "This land is yours. But Magyar, hear me also, for this land is ours too. There is room and riches enough for both our peoples to share, and much to be gained in partnership. This battle is unwarranted, but your strength is still needed. There is a new land waiting, a new enemy too, not just of the orcs or of the humans, but of all peoples of Azeroth. We sail for Khazalgar. I challenge the 7th Legion to have the strength to sail with us." There was silence across the battlefield. And then, as Jaina watched, a powerful-looking Korkron general stepped out of the ranks, watching from beneath the flame-lit hill. From the nearby line of the 7th Legion, a knight commander emerged and walked up to the Orcish general. Jaina held her breath, and then the Korkron leader held out his hand. The knight commander paused, then clasped the outstretched hand in his own. "This isn't over," Merrin hissed through clenched teeth, snapping Jaina's attention away from the others. "I follow the will of the people, so long as the blood of Arathor runs in my veins." That was when another voice cut in. "If you would permit me a word with my regent, Lord Admiral?" Jaina stepped to one side as Danath Trollbane walked out onto the field, leaders of the Stromic army following close behind him. Merrin's eyes thinned to slits, locking with Jaina's as her uncle approached. "I showed you mercy beneath the keep. I don't make the same mistake twice." Jaina joined Danath's side. "Neither do I. I didn't trust the situation in Stromgard from the moment I passed under its gates. For all I knew, that courier would have delivered the letter straight to you anyway." "So she sent a raven, too," continued Danath. "And what a very prescient decision that was." Merrin took a step toward Jaina, but was restrained by a Stromic captain. "Captain Brewston, timely as always." "My lord," the captain inclined his head. "What are your orders?" "Merrin Trollbane is hereby relieved of her official duties. Escort her to her chambers, where she will remain under arrest until I decide what to do with her." Danath turned to another in his party. "Captain Wren, organize search parties and bring in her supporters. I suspect there will be many still afield." "Take care," said Jaina. "Merrin has her spy master, a hunter called Zetasia. She will be the most loyal of them and is an expert shot. adept with poisons. Ren gave a salute, then began organizing his men. Jaina looked back at the hilltop, where she saw in the dying light of Agra's fire the trio of orcs marching down the hillside toward them. "Thrall!" she cried. "You are well?" Thrall gestured to Gayara.
"I've much to thank the Magar for,"
he said, before moving to Danath. The pair clasped forearms in greeting, and Danath bowed to the group. "Thrall, my friend," he said. "Agra and Gayara, I am honored to meet you. I must apologize for my regent. She painted a different picture of her intentions than what culminated here. Stromgard will offer reparations." "They are unnecessary," Gayara cut in. "I do not wish to punish your people for Marin's actions. Their losses here were great, and I would like to quash this animosity between our peoples before it can grow further." "You have my eager support in that," Danath said. He turned to Jaina. "Kurdran and Turalian wait for us at Stromgard. I suggest we join them." Dawn broke as the party, now joined by Taugar, Eitrig, the Korkron, and the 7th Legion, arrived at Stromgard. Kurdran, Wildhammer, and Turalian were waiting in the square outside the main keep. Turalian shook Jaina's hand. "Lord Admiral, the Sons of Lothar will answer your call." Kurdran coughed. "Little dramatic, Turalian? We've not gone by that name in, 2 decades? More?" The paladin grinned. "Maybe it's time we reclaim it." He turned to Jaina. "Once Danath gave me his report on the summit at Boralis, I realized the gravity of the situation. You'll have to forgive my absence at your council." "Of course," Jaina said. "But tell me, what of the Radiant Song? How does Stormwind fare?" Turalian pursed his lips. "The troubles still weigh on my mind, but I've left Gen to rule. He'll keep a tight rein on things in my absence."
Turalian, did you really just tell me you left Gen in charge of Stormwind? Okay. I will say Gen is showing signs of improvement ever since he turned over leadership of Gilneas to Tess. But I can't help but... I kind of twitched when I heard him say that. Just like, oh gosh. The idea of Gen being in charge of Stormwind. Ugh. But I will admit, when Danath showed up and put Meredith in her place... I'm loving Danath.
"We bring good news as well," said Danath. "The Kultiran fleet will dock here within the week." "Excellent," said Gayara. "Time enough to prepare." She turned to indicate her orcish companions. "My general, Talgar," she said as the warrior inclined his head, "and my advisor, Eitrig." Eitrig stood tall while Danath and Turalian exchanged an uncomfortable glance. It was Danath who broke the silence, clearing his throat as he bowed stiffly to the Blackrock chieftain. "It is good to see you again," he said. He looked up at his friend. "Isn't it, Turalian?" "Quite," said Turalian, his expression tight. He and Eitrig held each other's gazes for a moment before Eitrig turned to Jaina.
"Are we sure we want these two for champions?"
Eitrig smiled sharply.
"Having faced both of them in the 4th War, I can't say I was impressed. Surely the Alliance can offer someone a bit younger?"
See, I thought he was going to reference their past from before Turalian left, since Eitrig and Turalian were around in the days of Warcraft 2. But it is true that they were involved in Battle for Azeroth, but still.
Snorted a laugh before Jaina stepped between the trio. "We should hasten to make our plans," she said, turning a diplomatic smile on Eitrig. "An excellent suggestion," said Danath, letting out a long-held breath. "Please, if you will all follow me." The group headed towards Stromgard Keep, Thrall and Agra at the rear. Now that the current crisis had been contained, the weight of their mission once again took precedence. Agra took Thrall's hand in hers. It would seem you have your strike force. Thrall nodded.
We must not fail, he said. The fate of the world depends on it.
And we won't, said Agra. We have won this battle. We will win the next. What is it that troubles you? Thrall looked up at the gates of Stromgard. He would not soon forget standing before them, closed against him in hatred as he knelt, dying on the cobbles. Yes, they had succeeded in the end, but at what cost? As they turned their attention to Xalatath and her machinations, what seeds of hatred grew their roots ever deeper in the Arathi soil? What bitter crop remained for Gayara and the Magar to later reap? And this bothered him. Marin was under arrest, yes, but she had supporters, including her spy master who, according to Jaina, had shot both of them and remained at large. A dangerous loose end to leave, but Thrall had to trust that Danath's loyalists would be successful in their hunt, that they could stamp out what had started fermenting here.
These old hatreds, thought Thrall. With every victory, they still remain. Perhaps they can one day be solved. Perhaps.
Maybe. And thus ends the audio novella of Heartlands. But, yeah, no, it's what I was thinking as we were going through this story. There was two words that kept coming up in my head as we were going through this story. Old hatreds. It just seems to be a common thing that just never seems to go away in this setting. Old hatreds continue to be just this problem, and that we just cannot seem to get away from these, to put these away in the past. They just keep coming back. Like, Marin was just one, and she had supporters. How many others are still holding on to and festering those old hatreds like Marin? Like, even at the end there, Marin was still like, this isn't over. How many others out there are still feeling the same way like Marin? And I'm not just talking humans here. How many amongst the orcs and other races still feel those festering old hatreds that may someday just kind of like take fruition in the way that Marin tried to have them take fruition once she took command over Stromgard? Well, maybe that'll be a story for another time. But at least that lets us know what happened. So while we were questing in Khaz-Algar, all this was happening. So that's interesting little extra story. I wonder if we're ever going to hear from Marin or Zatasia, I believe is her name, the archer, if we're going to hear from them at some point in the future. I guess we'll just have to add this into the collection of unresolved storylines, because there's a lot of them. There's a ton of unresolved storylines in Warcraft that I think the writers and developers were like, we're going to shelve this over here, and if we ever need to continue with another story or something, we'll just pluck this out and continue it. They did that a lot in other recent content, like Legion. They did that with a lot of unresolved storylines, and I guess this is just yet another added to the collection of unresolved stories that maybe we'll get resolution on someday. Maybe we won't. Who knows? So, I hope you guys enjoyed Mr. Chris Metzen's audiobook narration of this story. I particularly enjoyed it, partly because it allowed my throat and voice to rest, while the voice of Thrall got to actually voice Thrall in this. Obviously, full credits to the people who made this on the World of Warcraft channel, including, of course, the credit to the amazing Chris Metzen. I'm very happy that he decided to contribute to this. This was a very wonderful, entertaining story to hear him narrate. And if we have any more of these stories where perhaps he gets to read them, or if it's just the PDFs, I'll certainly be looking to make videos on these. In the meantime, I will see you guys next time.